Okay, hi. Today I want to tell you all about a book that I think has very wide appeal that I just read and absolutely loved, and I want to convince all of you to read it. So, before we get started, just a few things. First, for new people who are here, hi, thank you for being here. I'm Elle, and we talk books, and we talk books, basically. That was the first thing. Second thing, I feel like if you're on the bookish internet, you'd have to kind of be under a rock not to know about this. But for anyone who is a Brandon Sanderson fan, he made a big announcement about what he has been up to during the pandemic. I don't want to give it away in case you haven't seen it, but if you like his books and you wish you had more of them, you should check out the link below before April 1st. I'll leave that at that. Okay, so what I actually want to do in this video, I want to talk about this book. And it is a nonfiction, true crime, and it is Bad Blood. Hold on, I'm going to get the whole title, words. Okay, it is Bad Blood, Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup by John Carreyrou. This is centering around a Silicon Valley startup that started up in the early 2000s, and scandal hit in 2015, 2016, when the author, John Carreyrou, who is a journalist for the Wall Street Journal, just put New York Times, not Wall Street Journal, came out with a piece of investigative journalism about Theranos. I have many reasons that I am intrigued in this, but I do feel that this has really wide appeal, which is kind of what I want to talk about, but I also want to talk about why this was so intriguing for me. First off, I grew up very close to the Silicon Valley. When I was young, the Silicon Valley was not what we know it to be now. I was growing up as that boom kind of happened. So Silicon Valley, when we think of those startups, we typically think of tech startups like Apple, Uber, these apps and everything. And what makes Theranos a bit different is that it was a startup that was being facilitated, run, as if it were a normal tech startup. But it wasn't. It was a med device startup. The concept behind the brand was that you would only have to get a finger prick of blood, and they would be able to analyze a very small quantity of blood where you wouldn't have to get an intravenous syringe put into your body with a lot of blood taken, to perform thousands of tests, perform diagnostic testing, be able to kind of know something is coming before it impacts you medically. It's going to be really hard to talk about this succinctly. The first thing is that if you like true crime, this is just the craziest true crime. There's I had my jaw on the floor for 70% of this book. Second, if you like fast-paced books, this was so compulsive. I read it in I listened to the audiobook, which was a solid audiobook, in 2 days, staying up very late on a Sunday, and it literally threw my whole week out of whack because I never caught up on my sleep, but because I couldn't stop listening. I knew if I stopped, I was going to think about it all night. If you like true crime, if you like fast-paced books, if you like mysteries, because how John Carreyrou wrote this, it just kind of unravels, and there's so many different tangents of crime and intrigue that was happening. It truly was a stranger than fiction novel. nonfiction. It's one of those books that I have a hard time talking about because I just can't. Like, it blows my mind. I'm going to keep repeating myself. This book blew my mind. The third, did I already do 3? I don't know. I can't keep track. The next one, I think, for people that would be interested in this is anyone who works in the medical field, because this is truly about a medical field true crime. Personally, I fall into this category. This was a med device company that no one was really selling as a med device company. So essentially, the CEO, who I will get to, Elizabeth Holmes, she dropped out of Stanford at the age of 19 and pursued this idea, started this company, got a bunch of investors. None of them worked in science, which is why they took so long to figure out the science didn't work. Where I was going was that this was a medical device company. Medical devices are regulated by the FDA. Laboratories which is where the blood is going to be drawn from, are regulated by federal and state authorities. So she was trying to navigate outside of regulation. She was trying to like slip her way around regulation to bypass it, essentially. And people didn't know it was happening because everyone had to sign an NDA and it was all very hush-hush. I don't want to go into too much detail about what I do, but we will just say that I am familiar with working in a corporate setting that is highly regulated by the government and is adjacent to med devices. Some people can do the math on that one. Needless to say, the field that I work in and how familiar I am with having to be compliant with your procedures that you then get audited by regulatory bodies, the fact that she was trying to bypass all of that is fascinating. So fascinating. The type of validations that you have to do and the type of documentation that you have to compile to then send to regulatory bodies for them to review and either accept your med device or what have you. How regulated that has to be, they would just throw away numbers that didn't work for them. I can't. It's like down to like the minute details. Like, yeah, you have to calibrate the equipment you use. And this might be boring for some people, but that's my whole job. My like 40-hour-a-week job is all around this. So I found this highly fascinating. I have recommended it to many coworkers in the past week. One of them is reading it and she keeps coming to me like, holy shit, I can't believe this happened. So if you've worked in the medical field at all, you'd be interested in this. Elizabeth Holmes, the CEO, is also a fascinating character at play because she is the catalyst of everything. She got a lot of power by proximity. So if you are interested at all in he doesn't dive deep into like a psychoanalysis of her because that's not really what the book is about. But as you read the book, if you're that type of person, you're doing a psychoanalysis of her. You're thinking about like what kind of person she is, how she was navigating these situations, like how, like he talks about how she would be like very like upbeat and interacting with someone and like really like intent, like having a good time, like we're really understanding each other. And then someone would ask like the wrong question and her entire demeanor would change and she'd become very cold and distant. That is a theme through this book. So if that fascinates you, read this book. So the company I work for is pretty corporate. I mean, I think if you've worked in the corporate world, you've probably seen places that have really like intense corporate cultures to the point where it feels like a cult, which they kind of have to do, right? You have thousands of people working for this company. You need people to kind of be unified behind messages to get the work done in the way you want it to be done. So there's cult-like characteristics in corporations, for their employees especially. The way this business was run is like how to not manage people 101. It was fascinating. It's just like, you know, like those self-help books of like how to be a good manager and blah, blah, blah. I just recently started managing people and have had to take managerial classes. Well, they're optional, but I have been taking classes on like how to manage people. And like literally everything you're supposed to do, everything books tell you to do, everything the world tells you to do about managing, they did the exact opposite of. It is, and just the fact that like they had that much turnover and they didn't totally fall apart is crazy. The way that departments were split off from each other so that they couldn't interact, it's also crazy. Like, I mean, most people know, you and I know, right? We're in the working world that like, you can't just work with your own department. You have to work with other departments to get your job done. My entire job, I'm in quality, my entire job is oversight of other departments, which they didn't have a quality department. Like, what is that? They didn't have a regulatory department. What is that? We're just going to ignore regulations. Oh my goodness. But yeah, if you like are interested in like management or mismanagement at all, you should read this book. I also just want to talk about how the book was written, because it was a kind of a narrative nonfiction. John Carreyrou is an investigative journalist that investigates sort of like medical related stuff. So he has a lot of medical background or knowledge. And he starts the book kind of introducing her, Elizabeth, introducing how she started the company, how she started getting investors all around her, and kind of like the trajectory of the business, how things were never going to work out the way she thought that they were, how she kind of just kept lying and lying and lying and making it seem like she had like solid product when she didn't. It's like she went from R&D, like research and development, to like phase 3, like commercial, and just like skipped everything in between and never did like all of the testing you have to do in between to prove what you're, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going too deep. But how he kind of told the narrative was that he kind of kept bringing you along in time, and he broke the case in 2015, and this came out, I believe, in 2018, and you get to the point where he finds out about Theranos and begins writing, doing his investigative journalism, and it actually gave me like chills when I was reading it, because it had been a third person narrative the whole time. And then he like brings you to the point of like this person reaching out to a journalist, and then, you know, it's him. And then it switches to a first person narrative, because at that point he became very involved in the process of breaking this case, like interacting with the whistleblowers, interacting with like regulatory agencies, the amount of interacting with lawyers that Theranos had available to them, just fascinating. Elizabeth Theranos, became very like politically connected, was like Joe Biden went to their lab, which that part was crazy. Like I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep just like thinking about how nuts this is. So the writing was just really, really drew you in, really sucked you in. But yeah, like if you like fast-paced, if you like mystery, if you like reading nonfiction that is really stranger than fiction, if you have any interest in like management and like corporate things falling apart, if you have any interest in like the celebrity that can come with association of someone to their product, that doesn't even work. That would have never worked. You should read this book. I really do feel that this book has such wide appeal. I'd be really interested to hear who has already read it, if you agree with me, and if you found different parts fascinating. But yeah, I would just highly, I rarely do this, I would highly encourage all of you to go read this book. And that is all I have for this video. So thank you for watching me rant and ramble and like lose myself in words because it's just so mind-blowing. And yeah, I'll see you next time.